Now, here's the lucky thing. Pete and I clearly have this in common, that we're political and like personal hoarders, because he saved his acceptance letter from West Point. And he goes back to them and shows it to them. And then after that, then they still don't believe him. West Point says, oh, actually, yeah, kind of, yeah, we did accept him. To me, this is just another attempt to go get him, right? When I got into the White House, they FOIA'd my military records. These guys are always looking for the gotcha moment. And I think this was a good day for Pete Hegseth to prove how the media is out to get him.
It is unbelievable how the media decides to cover these things, what they decide to focus on, how they decide to cherry pick. And right now, they are just digging in the dirt, trying to find anything that they can get on Pete Hegseth, and they're failing miserably.
All right, guys, good Thursday to you. Holy smokes. I mean, they used to say things come in threes. I think they're coming in like 33s, because this is a huge day for Trump and Team Trump. He was named Times Person of the Year. I was a little shocked by that, only because I felt like the media maybe didn't want to give it to him. They would give it to Elon if you listen to yesterday's show. But sure enough, they not only gave it to him, but in an interview on the Today Show this morning, the editor had nothing but nice things to say. What's going on in America? But it gets crazier. He opened the New York Stock Exchange, first president since Reagan to do that, first presidential elect that I can find. Mark Zuckerberg, sit down for this, donating $1 million to Donald Trump's inauguration. The FBI Director Christopher Wray says that he is resigning. Pete Hegseth is calling out West Point for lying about his record. So much to break down with the panel. Before I get to that, though, one guy who probably isn't having as good a day as Donald Trump, but has done some amazing work, is my buddy Leo Grillo out there at Delta Rescue. You've heard me talk about Leo. They've been with us since the launch. Amazing organization out there. World's largest no-kill sanctuary, not a shelter, a sanctuary. They take in malnutrition, dogs in need for health reasons. They're abandoned, they're abused. It's amazing. Dogs, cats, horses, you name it. If you go to deltarescue.org, you can take a look at what I'm talking about. The manifestation of what Leo started with adopting one single dog that he named Delta is unbelievable. But here's the thing. Leo's not looking for a handout. He's looking for our support. If you're a dog lover or rescuer of animals, go to deltarescue.org. Please consider a contribution. Amazing, amazing organization. More importantly, you'll see that tab. It says estate planning up at the top. Do me a huge favor. If you are a dog lover or an animal lover or know someone who is, and want to make them part of your estate so that this can continue for generations to come, please just download it, read it, pray about it, think about it. You might get some kind of tax consequence for making Delta Rescue part of your estate right now. Maybe you've got an old 401k or stocks. But anyway, please do me a favor. Just go to deltarescue.org, take a look at it, download it, and pray on it. Thanks so much. All right, as I mentioned, Trump, big day. Time Person of the Year, ringing the bell. The FBI director preemptively resigning, saying, I don't want to get in the way of this, which was interesting because not too long ago, he said he's not going to do that, right? And then the FAA administrator, and both of these folks have a term well beyond Donald Trump's administration, but he knows that he has the right to fire him. How does he know that? Because, well, I don't want to take full credit because it wasn't me that fought this battle, but check out this article in the Washington Examiner. That's right. It says it right there. Trump can fire anyone because of Sean Spicer, right? I literally sued the Biden administration. And here's the dirty thing. I've talked to you guys about this before. What no one understood is my term at the Naval Academy was up in November. Biden fired us all simultaneously, everybody, the ones on the Air Force Board, West Point, one day, literally sent a letter and said, resign by 6 o'clock. I said no. People like Russ Vought and I teamed up and filed a lawsuit. Now, we knew we weren't getting back in office, but we made them go to court and argue in the affirmative that they had the absolute authority to fire anyone. Everyone thought we lost the case because the Biden administration went all the way to the appeals process. We didn't lose the case. We now have the Biden administration on record in court with the court affirming their argument, saying that the president has absolute 100% authority to fire anyone. Hello, dum-dums in the media said that we lost the case. They had no idea what we were doing because the reality was August we get fired, November is when my term would have ended. There's no way we would have ever been restored on the boards. We knew that. We were making them do that. And now Donald Trump has full authority to fire anybody because the Biden administration went to court all the way to the appeals court and said, we have absolute authority to do it. And the court affirmed that. dum-dums. So when these guys all get fired on January 20th, make sure you thank Joe Biden, because he's the one who laid the groundwork for that to happen. Plus, over at West Point, we're going to talk about this with the panel. Big mistake that they made, and Pete Hegseth is now reeling in the benefits of it. I'm going to break that down with you. It's unbelievable. Biden commuted the sentences of and pardons of 1,500 people today. Dum-Dum should have done this when he did the Hunter one. Why would you do it separately? It was so politically, I mean, his team screwed this up big time. But guess what? Anita Dunn, top advisor, we're going to show you this with the panel. She is teeing off on what a bad idea this was. And President Trump invited President Xi of China to his inauguration. Did you know this? No foreign leader has ever attended the inauguration of a U.S. president. Never in history. I'm going to ask the panel in a minute who they think will be the first president or foreign leader to accept an invitation, because I think Donald Trump's about to break the mold. It's unbelievable. All right. By the way, a CNN poll shows that 55% of Americans approve of Trump's transition. If CNN says 55%, can you imagine what the real number is? All right. Before I bring in the panel, I want to tell you a little bit about my friends over at PhD Weight Loss. You saw Seb Gorka the other day. The guy looks amazing, right? I can admit it. I'm comfortable in my manhood. He looks great. But he did it when I asked him. I said, what are you doing? You taking a pill or a drug? He said, no. I've joined my PhD Weight Loss. They put a plan together. They hold you accountable. They craft a plan specifically for you, and it's working. He looks great. I've started it myself. I'm down a little, right? And I'm on the right track, especially heading into the holiday season. This is what you want to do as you go out. You want to know, okay, how do I manage these parties to stay on track, to get healthier? And it's phenomenal. You get weekly check-ins with a nutritionist. They give you some starter food. You will not, this is a change in your lifestyle. It's not a fad diet. And this is about getting back to being healthy. Don't wait till January, New Year's resolution. Call my friends at My PhD Weight Loss right now, 1-864-644-1900. Or more importantly, go to myphdweightloss.com, myphdweightloss.com, and start on your journey. It's amazing. There's a level of accountability that you just don't get anywhere else. And they tailor it all to you to make sure that they understand the real you, and then your nutritionist checks in with you. myphdweightloss.com. All right, let's bring in the panel. So much to break down. Dr. Nan Hayworth, the former member of Congress from New York and a member of the board of directors of the Independent Women's Forum. Virginia Allen, senior news producer over there at the Daily Signal and the co-host of Problematic Women. And the ambassador to the show from the great state of Indiana, Indiana's own, out there in Indianapolis on WIBC, Tony Katz. All welcome. Good to see you all. What a big day for Donald Trump. And I can't help but think, Nan, how different this is than 2016. I mean, I am so glad to have played a part in 2016 and been a part of history, but I'm a little jealous. I mean, everybody hated on us in 2016. Here's why you didn't win the election. We're resigning from these boards and we won't meet with him. And now, like, literally Zuckerberg's throwing $1 million at his inauguration.
It's fantastic, Sean, and thank you so much for your patriotic service to our country in so many ways. You were on the firing line, and you handled that extraordinary stress with grace and with full confidence, and that was really inspiring to the rest of us. But I think the difference is this. We now know, America knows how great we had it when Donald Trump was president. And it was because of two things. One, the first and foremost was policy. And that's what Americans on the ground voted on this in the 2024 election. Their lived experience, to use the Democrats, one of their favorite tropes, but also, yes, the force of his personality. His resolute nature to defend America first and Americans first in a world that has presented us with every possible adversarial challenge. So I think Americans voted for those two things. Everybody now, I live in Metro New York. My town actually went 52-48, Bedford, New York, for Donald Trump. And you would not have predicted that before the election. But now everybody feels free to speak So I think we're going to see a lot more good things. That's certainly what I'm praying for. And he is gracious in victory, which is so important. And that will be what helps bind us all together.
Virginia Allen, the Time Magazine interview was fascinating to me. These guys, like the media, Zuckerberg making this donation, the New York Stock Exchange, the warm welcome he got there this morning. Time Magazine, when the editor went on the Today Show this morning, he had nothing but nice things to say about the interview that Donald Trump. I mean, I'm scared. I'm actually like, what's going on? Everybody likes this guy now. Like, have we turned a corner, or is this just a phase?
It does feel a little weird, doesn't it? Like, what universe are we really living in right now? Because, like, 6 months ago, you guys were essentially calling this guy the devil, and now you're embracing it.
6 weeks ago.
So true. The light switch has flipped. And I think it's flipped because they saw the results of the election. And they're like, oh, wait a second. We've been getting it wrong. We thought that the American people were for kids transitioning. And we thought that the American people were for abortion without limits. And we thought the American people were for open borders. Wait a second. I guess they're not. So I think that the writing has been on the wall, and finally media folks like the folks at Time Magazine are kind of waking up to that. But I also think there's this level where it's not just about the fact that Trump won the election and that he won in such big numbers, but also how he won was so completely unprecedented, right, Sean? I mean, he brought together a coalition that for any American 2 years ago, you'd been like, all right, yeah, we're going to have Elon Musk and RFK and Trump, you know, they're all going to be working together, and throw in Joe Rogan. People have been like, what on earth? But Trump was this uniter this election of just bringing together these different, really unique contingencies from across the country to where the American people could say, oh, well, maybe I don't love this person's policies, but I really like what this individual stands for. And the fact that they're standing with Trump, well, I guess I can stand with Trump as well. And then we have to mention fight, fight, fight. I mean, that image, my word, the iconic image of the decade, arguably. And I think that moment for so many Americans was a turning point, and I have to believe that image, that thought came into the mind as Time Magazine was thinking about, all right, who is Person of the Year? I mean, that image summarizes the year in so many ways.
Tony, I looked at him ringing the bell today, and it was unbelievable, right? I don't know, maybe it's just I can't get over this, but it was like Melania, Ivanka, Doug Burgum, JD Vance. I'm trying to think of who else was. So it was Vance, Brooke Rollins, who's going to be the incoming agriculture. I mean, it was like all of his team was sitting there, right. And it was a reminder of how like disruptive and talented RFK sitting next to him. To me, it was this visualization of what's about to happen. We are about to see Washington turned on its head, and at least to the discussion that we've been having, I think people are ready for it. They're like, I'm tired of business as usual. I think what Nan said earlier was something, it was so smart, because I was thinking about this the other day. Trump being out of office made people realize, right? We see Trump's policy. I don't like the tweets. We had Joe Biden come in, no tweets, no late nights, no interviews. And we said, okay, the policies actually matter in our lives, and they suck. And I'd rather take Donald Trump fighting for the policies that make my life better than worry about some stupid tweets.
So allow me to give a little more cynical view than Virginia and Nan there. I don't think anybody at Time Magazine likes Donald Trump at all. I don't think they like him in any way, shape, or form. But you can't deny reality, which is a pretty important thing to note, because the Democratic Party has been denying reality, certainly for 4 years and longer than that. They went with the hot hand. It was the smart thing to do. It would get people on their side and would certainly keep Trump off their back. Remember, people don't often deal in altruism. They deal in what's best for them. To that end,
do you think that was, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that was, to me, the first thing I thought of when Mark Zuckerberg gave $1 million. I'm like, you are just, you know that he's coming for you, and this is your way after the Zuck
the
bucks.
first thing I thought about was only $1 million. You're Mark Zuckerberg. What kind of nonsense is this? $1 million. Elon Musk blows his nose on $1 million. You might not have 400 billion, but you could do a little bit better than that. Maybe one less wall around the Hawaii house, Mark. And also, could you stop throttling all the people who follow me at Tony Katz Radio on Facebook? That would be terrific. But on this idea of cynical, I don't know if the American people like him or not. They certainly took a look at what the Democrats have brought over the last 4 years and said, could people stop lecturing me and trying to tell me that boys can be girls and girls can be boys, and tell me that somehow the border is safe and secure when it's not, and I have a cousin who died of fentanyl poisoning. They saw reality versus what they were being told and said, at least this guy is honest about what it is we're seeing. I don't know if I like him. I think there is a cap of support for Trump. The place where people actually have hope is when you take a look at that consumer confidence number. That number has exploded. People see 2025 as an opportunity to get back some economic health, to see some prices maybe fall in line. They are very, very hopeful in that regard. So in that, and certainly how this transition has gone, and really the good humor of Trump, I think, yes, there is a general affability there. People are like, okay, maybe it won't be as bad this time. But I think that is created because the left has been so completely out of touch and irrational over the last 4 years. And MSNBC still is post-election, that they so want to get rid of that they're really willing to give the benefit of the doubt. It is more, I think, a process of the left's insanity than it is some, I've always liked Trump, and now I realize how good he is.
Nan, Tony brought up tone. The Meet the Press interview that he did last week, although I objected to them helping Meet the Press, was amazing. He did a phenomenal job. The tone and tenor was pitch perfect. This interview he did with Time Magazine, I mean, I haven't read the whole thing yet, but I've read some of it. Again, same thing. I feel like Donald Trump is coming to office with a new approach. He's going to, and I think it's because he's thinking of his legacy. I think that you have a tax on your life and you have an entire new view on how you live your life going forward, that it's much more precious, that you think about your legacy and your place in the world, especially a guy like him. Do you think that these are just two isolated interviews, or that we're going to see a different Donald Trump? He talked about his inaugural address, talking more about unity than last time. Remember, it was American carnage. I just wonder, are these isolated interviews, or are we going to see a new approach from Donald Trump?
It's a great question, Sean. I actually think we're seeing the real Donald Trump. I remember I met then Donald Trump in 2012, and right before the election. And he was, as you've all noted, he was affable. He was expansive. He was candid. He loved to entertain an audience, but he wanted to bring people to his side. And I don't say that in an egotistical way. Just that's his nature. I think we're seeing much more of the real Donald Trump now. He doesn't feel besieged. He feels affirmed, and he should. And I do think he is one of those people who, when that's the situation, he is going to do everything he can to bring as many folks into the fold as possible. Hence the invitation, which is fascinating, as I think you mentioned, Sean, to President Xi of China to attend the inauguration. It's just we're going to keep doing things that will surprise people for their spiritual generosity, because my goal here is to make America better, is to make it the strongest it's ever been, the greatest it's ever been, and to do that for the world too. And I think that's his mindset.
All right, I want to pick up on that in just a second. I want to tell you guys, if you're entertaining during the holidays, I mentioned this to you before. I had 11 people at my house for Thanksgiving. And every morning we had to brew a ton of coffee to get everyone jacked up so that we could go out and do all the things that we did in the area. And I had pots of Wired to Fish, and everybody said to me, where is this coffee from? Why does it taste so great? I showed you guys on Instagram. I went through pots of this stuff. It's amazing. It's Arabica beans from Mexico and Guatemala. It tastes great. But what I love even more about Wired to Fish is 25% of their profits go to faith-based organizations and clean water initiatives. I love the fact that when I'm voting with my wallet, not just at the election, but now in the economy, I'm voting to get products and help companies that are consistent with my values. I don't like Starbucks. I don't like who they support. The coffee's horrible. What they do with the money's horrible. Why not go to a place like Wired to Fish? And if you go to Wired, the numeral 2 coffee, Wired to Fish coffee.com and use code WeCare, you can save 15%. Wired, the number 2 coffee.com, wired2fishcoffee.com. And I'm just telling you, you're going to have a great cup of coffee and feel good about it when you drink it, which, you stay awake, you feel good. It's amazing. So try it out right now. Get it in time for the holidays if you're having people over to come. Wired, the numeral 2 fishcoffee.com. All right, Virginia, I want to go off of what Nan just said. I did not know until this morning that no foreign leader has ever attended the inauguration of a U.S. president. I don't know why. I mean, I don't think I've ever thought about it, but I do think that it's going to change now. You tell me, I mean, I don't know that President Xi of China is going to make it for a variety of reasons, but I do think somebody right now, Viktor Orban from Hungary, or somebody's raising their hand saying, I'm going to be the first to come over there and show Donald Trump that I'm willing to do this. Am I off base? And if not, who do you think will accept this invitation?
I definitely don't think you're off base, Sean. I think that it is likely, and especially now foreign leaders are seeing, okay, the invitations are going out. You know that there's probably some phone calls being made to some people on the transition team saying, hey, I would sure love to receive an invite. My boss would sure love to receive an invite. I would love to see Trump invite Benjamin Netanyahu. I think that would make such a strong statement, both that, hey, the American people forever and always, we stand with Israel.
I love that choice. I thought I just Tony Katz. I got to believe that like Macron is like me. Like me, I would love to come. That's a horrible Macron.
Very good impression. I almost
you think? I don't know. I feel like it sounds more Pepe Le Pew than Emmanuel Macron.
It'd be interesting because I don't know.
You think Governor Trudeau is going to come?
First of all, how dare you? That is so rude. Canadians have no sense of humor about being the 51st state. If Trump wants to invite someone, I can never pronounce his last name, Polyev, who's the conservative who's going to run against and run to being prime minister, I'd invite him. There's Milei, of course, out of Argentina. If you're
good call.
In this way, I think there are people. I don't know how I feel about it. It's a uniquely American thing. It's about the United States.
But
and
we
I don't
go
know
to
if
all their stuff. We send a delegation to everybody else's, and I feel like
but that's them.
Why don't they come to us?
That's them. I don't know if I want them there, to be honest. I've never put any thought into it, but I don't know if I want Xi Jinping there. It makes it kind of look like he's got a say in what's going on. Not only would I don't want him, I don't want anybody.
I don't know. I like the imagery of, hey, China, sit down while we, it shows them our democracy at work.
Maybe 6 of one, half a dozen of the other for some, or people can have their own opinions on this. I just don't know where I am on it.
All right, let's go back around the horn. Speaking of, people that are going to have some time on their hands, FBI Director Christopher Wray, after saying he wasn't going to resign, Virginia, suddenly he's addresses the FBI staff and says, I'm out. I want to allow this to happen. That's good news for Kash Patel.
What's your reaction to Ray's resignation? We look forward to a very smooth transition at the FBI, and I'll be ready to go on day one.
Like, again, he easily could have been fired, and I think he basically wanted to get ahead of the curve on this thing.
Yeah, I think he did. I think he made a wise choice. He knew he was going to be fired, so I think you're absolutely right. He wanted to get it ahead of it and kind of leave in some ways on his own terms. But look, this is a great day in many ways for the American people, because the American people have lost faith in the FBI under Christopher Wray's leadership. We've seen the FBI be weaponized. I mean, you just look at the incidents that have happened when you've had individuals like Stephen Friend and Garrett O'Boyle, who have testified before Congress, who were in the FBI, and they said, hey, we saw firsthand how it was being weaponized against the American people. When we started to say anything, our own colleagues and bosses turned on us and pushed us out. You look at Mark Houck, who had in 2022 had 15 FBI agents show up at his house with guns drawn and, throw him in a vehicle like he was some sort of violent criminal, a pro-life father. So these are the incidents that it's like, all right, this has happened under Christopher Wray's leadership, and there needs to be a really deep cleaning that happens at the FBI to weed out the folks who were responsible for these incidents and for the weaponization of so much of the FBI, of the justice system in general. And I do think that Kash Patel, just given how aggressive he is, how bold he is, and his commitment to really kind of uproot the deep state, I think it's definitely going to make it a little bit easier to already have Christopher Wray out of the way so that Kash Patel can come in, if he is confirmed, and get to work on day one.
Tony, I think that the signal that, you had the FAA administrator say he's stepping down. I think Christopher Wray watched the Jim Comey movie and said, either I get epically fired in the middle of a speech somewhere and have to lose my security detail and my plane ride home, or I can say to Donald Trump, I got the message. But it's a bigger signal to me that said, he had a 10-year term. He had 3 years left on it. They could have tried to fight some of this or whatever, but I think the case that I referenced at the beginning proves that the Trump president has every right to fire anyone he wants. But also, I think these guys know that, it's not going to end well if you try to fight this guy. And that sends to me, we talk about shifts. I agree with you on the media and corporate America, but I think the government folks also know the changes are coming.
And it's interesting to see the people on the political left saying Christopher Wray should have stayed. He should have fought this. We need these guardrails. That was a specific term utilized on the morning show over there at MSNBC, to the extent that anybody is still watching. We need these guardrails over there at the FBI to keep us safe. So their argument is for Christopher Wray staying there, not that he has 3 years left on a term, but rather the duly elected president of the United States shouldn't be able to do the things that a duly elected president of the United States is able to do. And if you take that a step further, the argument for keeping Wray is that you, the voter, we, the American people, didn't do what we were supposed to do. We didn't vote for the right person. And therefore, we, the elitists, the ones who know best, who have to tell you what to do, have to keep people in place to keep bad things from happening. We're in charge. You didn't do the right thing. And we have to protect you from yourself. They haven't learned any lesson regarding their elitism and where the Americans are.
All right. There's another. Nan, how far was your congressional district from where West Point is located?
I had the privilege of serving West Point as its member.
I thought so. That's why I asked. All right. Well, if there's somebody who probably needs to maybe either get their resume in order or be ready to be fired, it's the superintendent of West Point for a variety of reasons. But most importantly, yesterday, this epic thing goes down. Pete Hegseth has said multiple times that he was accepted to West Point and chose not to go. Well, the leftists over at ProPublica, some leftist media outlet, challenged Pete, which again, I'm thinking to myself, who lies about this stuff? No, they've never questioned anyone on the left. Huh? Good point. Thank you. Maybe I'm wrong. But again, even with Tim Walz, they didn't fact check him, and it was absolutely true. Right? He did fundamentally lie about being a command sergeant major, his rank. He lied about firing weapons of war. He lied about getting an award in Nebraska from the Chamber of Commerce. He has a history of lying. But Pete Hegseth has no history of lying about his record. So he says, oh yeah, I was accepted to West Point. I chose not to go. And the thing about this, Nan, is that, so what did they do? They call West Point. West Point gives them a statement on the record saying, we have no record of him ever being accepted to West Point. Now, here's the lucky thing. Pete and I clearly have this in common, that we're political and personal hoarders, because he saved his acceptance letter from West Point. And he goes back to them and shows it to them. And then after that, then they still don't believe him. West Point says, oh, actually, yeah, kind of. Yeah, we did accept him. And I think to myself, you guys, to me, this is just another attempt to go get him, right? When I got into the White House, they FOIA'd my military records. These guys are always looking for the gotcha moment. And I think This was a good day for Pete Hegseth to prove how the media is out to get him.
And not just that, Sean, I agree with you completely. But it illustrates the rot at the heart of institutional America, particularly in our government. And of course, again, Americans with common sense, thank God, Americans with common sense have been able to see through it and see beyond it. But as Tony has pointed out, and rightly, they are going to keep trying. They are not giving up on enshrining or retaining their vision of what America should be. And it's not what the America First majority of the population, even if it's a small majority at this point, the America First majority of the population wants. So a deep and thorough institutional house cleaning has to go on. And thank goodness, and thank you, Sean, for your playing the long game on that lawsuit. President Trump is going to come in with his team and get that cleaning going. And it's long overdue.
Virginia Allen, you guys at the Daily Signal, like if this was you, let's just play this out for a second, because I was wondering about this last night. Let's say that Pete didn't have those documents handy, and he's saying, I got accepted to West Point. Like, I mean, like, again, I probably do save all my stuff. Jeez, now that I think about it. I was like, I do think I have every acceptance letter, which is a whole separate story. But I think to myself, okay, had he not had those, they wouldn't have believed him. They would have written a story that said that Pete Hegseth is a liar, right?
I mean, it's unbelievable. And we watched the media do this. You're right. I mean, they go back and they try and make these claims. And I think the thing, though, that's frustrating, it's like, really, media, you're going to waste not only Pete Hegseth's time, but the American people's time. I mean, at the end of the day, who cares whether or not he was accepted to West Point? I think that the bigger story there is there are compelling reasons as to why Pete Hegseth decided not to go to West Point, and you have a school that has become so radically left and woke and has been so indoctrinated by such a radical agenda. The very thing that Pete Hegseth is saying, I'm going to weed out of our military and really work full force to get out of there. But it is unbelievable how the media decides to cover these things, what they decide to focus on, how they decide to cherry pick. And right now, they are just digging in the dirt, trying to find anything that they can get on Pete Hegseth, and they're failing miserably.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. I mean, this is literally a game of gotcha, and God bless him for saving this stuff, because they would have written the story. They would have said he was a liar. Somehow he would have gotten enough people to say, I saw his acceptance letter or whatever, and then they would have made it a he said, she said. Oh, he says that he was accepted. We don't have any concrete proof. But just the mere fact that, you know, to Tony's point, they accepted Tim Walz. There is concrete proof that Tim Walz lied fundamentally over and over and over again, and they did nothing. And Pete Hegseth told the truth, and yet they still wanted to get him.
Yeah.
Tony, I want to shift gears, though, because this morning President Biden commuted and pardoned 1,500 people. The reason I bring this up is I cannot believe that they didn't do this when Hunter was doing it. Like, mix it in. Be like, hey, he did 1,501 and one of them was Hunter. Like, how politically stupid. But I want to really focus you in on something. Anita Dunn, top advisor to Joe Biden. She is a Democrat senior communication operative that's been around for a while, served in the White House multiple times. Her husband was the White House counsel. I mean, this is her on a panel. I just want to play it for you so you understand the full context of why this is important. Go.
A president who ran to restore the rule of law, who has upheld the rule of law, who has really defended the rule of law, kind of saying, well, maybe not right now. So, you know, Maggie, as I say, I agree with the decision to pardon. I absolutely think that Hunter deserves a pardon here, but I disagreed on the timing, the argument, and sort of the rationale.
Was this pardon discussed while you were still in the White House, or was this all new information for people after the fact?
I was never part of any pardon discussion when I was at the White House, beyond the question of what do we tell the press if they ask about this. And there was a one-word response, right, which was no. And I think if you read the news reports and the reporting around this, it's very clear that the White House was really not part of this process. It was a process that was done very much internally with the family and with the defense lawyers.
I haven't heard a single Democrat of that stature come out and be critical of Kamala, of Joe Biden. And the break here was, to me, significant, that finally the dam has got a break in it. The leak is coming out. That was damning from someone of her stature.
Is she arguing that the pardon of Hunter Biden is somehow different than these 1,500 you're seeing, the clemency operation that just took place, that it exists on its own and doesn't actually have a reflection of the Democratic Party as a whole?
No, I think she's arguing like the 1,500. I don't think this happened before the 1,500, right. But I think that she's saying that those 1,500 people, I assume some of them served their sentences and they're pardoning. This is Hunter getting the blanket pardon and her saying this was not done the right way. And she's critical of it, which I give her credit for. Of course, it's happening, much later after the fact, but no Democrat. I mean, I've gone off on this before. It was a gun charge and a tax charge. That's what Democrats live to talk about. And she's at least admitting that this was done horribly.
But if it's done horribly, that the question has to be what was done horribly, that he got the pardon at all, or how the pardon was explained to America, how there was no groundwork that was done to alert the press to help them push the proper message in order to make all of this okay. Which part of this is considered the unacceptable? We look at the pardon and say, well, clearly it was done for a protective purpose for Joe Biden. Many of us, and I would assume the four of us here, expect more pardons to come for the Biden family and anybody associated with the big guy emails, et cetera. All those things that the New York Post deemed to be true when they got the laptop to begin with. But when you hear Anita Dunn, if this is the argument that she's indeed making, I'd be curious to know which part she thought was wrongly handled. The politics of the thing, that the administration couldn't keep tabs on the president, and some wild decision made by Jill Biden to make this happen for her son? Or was it they didn't manage properly the media to be able to then tell us why this is actually a good thing and it's all Trump's fault?
Yeah, Nan, I can't believe, just on a political standpoint, that they were dumb enough to do Hunter Biden on his own, get critiqued for that, and then roll out 1,500 a week later. I was like, dum-dums, put it all together and get it out. I mean, but it just showed, I don't know who's advising the president anymore.
Well, I think it does seem very clear from all of this that the Democratic Party is distancing itself from Joe Biden. Joe Biden has betrayed their hopes and expectations in this final few months of his term in ways that I think they fear rightly, ways from which they may never recover. They put their faith and their trust, their reputations, their sacred honor in the wrong guy. And the biggest betrayal, of course, is that he, to my mind, for their purposes, is that he vowed he wouldn't do it. They insisted, again, put their honor on his insistence that he was not going to do that pardon of his son. And then he went ahead and did it. So to whom is he listening? Well, probably, I'm sure he's listening to his inner voice that says, I have to protect Joe Biden first and foremost, because that is the voice to which he has always listened first.
Virginia Allen, they've talked a lot about preemptive pardons for Liz Cheney, Dr. Fauci, Mark Milley, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The way he's going, I got to believe that they're just going to go ahead and be on like a pardon roll between now and January 20th, handing them out like little Pez dispensers. Because this is I've said this yesterday, he needs something to say I did between now and January 20th for his legacy. And I think he wants to show that he was enacting clemency and pardons for everybody on the progressive left that's ever been accused of anything, and then get ahead of this preemptive thing. But where do you think this thing goes? I just got to believe they're on a pardon roll.
I mean, I don't think he has anything to lose, right? I mean, to flip what Nan was saying on its head, I think Joe Biden feels completely betrayed by the Democrat Party. I mean, they kicked him off the ticket, and I think he's like, all right, you guys screwed me over. I'm going to do what I want to do, which is make sure my son is protected, my friends are protected, any allies out there that can get on my good side, because there's a lot of establishment Democrats that frankly have turned their back on Joe Biden that are blaming him for a Democrat not winning this election. And I think he's tired of really being their puppet in so many ways. And the moment that he has, in the moments I think that he has stood up and tried to lead, they've sort of shoved him back down. And I think he's done with it. You know, I mean, the man's in his 80s. I don't think he cares anymore. And so my guess is we probably will see more pardons, because at the end of the day, what does he have to lose?
I agree. All right. We usually end Thursdays with just talking who won the week, who lost the week. Tony Katz, do you anyone pop out in your mind who won the week for you and who lost it?
I don't see how Trump doesn't win the week. Hegseth is going to get confirmed. You got the Time magazine, as we've discussed, the man of the year conversation. Consumer confidence is up. How he isn't the guy who wins the week is beyond me. And if you ask me for my loser, should I do that now? Do I wait?
Yeah, go for it.
That's Jay-Z. Because he party like a Diddy party, and it turns out a Diddy party is really, really bad, and I never got invited, and I never went. So Jay-Z has got 100 problems now.
A great poll on that one. Nan Hayworth, who do you think won the week? Who do you think lost it?
Well, overwhelmingly, President Trump won the week. For all the reasons we've been discussing. And I would say who lost the week? There has been a steady drumbeat of disappointment, retroactive disappointment in Barack Obama. And I think the events in Syria, the collapse of the Syrian government, of the Assad government, and possibly, I mean, it's a very complex situation, no question about it, but that turmoil, that violence, and we don't know where it's going to end. It could very well end with, an equally odious regime for different reasons. But it points up again how Barack Obama failed in the Middle East, and Obama Part 3 has failed in the Middle East because, he set that red line when, supposedly if Assad gassed the citizens of his nation and never acted on it, whereas Donald Trump, now having a marvelous ascent, had the Abraham Accords. So I think Barack Obama is becoming the biggest loser.
I love that perspective. I love this when we do this on Thursdays, because there's always something that gets brought to the table. Like Tony talking about Jay-Z. Again, that's probably not what comes to, but he's right. I mean, this guy who's been so sanctimonious about so many other things, suddenly the news comes out about this 13-year-old at a Jay-Z party. Your point about Barack Obama. All right, Virginia Allen, bring us home. I mean, who do you think had a good week? Who do you think had a bad week?
So much change for Pete Hegseth this week. This was really a banner week. So I'm going to have to say Pete Hegseth, I think, really won this week, not only because of the West Point stuff, but also we have seen just senator after senator really begin to get in line. We've seen so many photos of him meeting with various senators across Capitol Hill. And you're right, I think he now looks like he's pretty much on a glide path to get that confirmation. As far as losers, I'm going to have to go with Jill Biden. That photo that she had with Trump and Trump's use of now employing that for his perfume and cologne collection. Not a great day for
But
Jill
let me
Biden.
ask you this. Was she a loser? Because there's a lot of people out there that say that she was smiling because she hates Kamala so much that she was. So I guess the question is, maybe she's not happy that she's being used in the way she is, but I do wonder if she secretly was like, you guys come after my husband, I'm going to show you what can happen.
I would love to be able to close the door and just have an off-the-record conversation with Jill Biden.
The only way you're doing that is with a couple drinks, too. You got to loosen her up.
Yeah. We'll bring some good Cabernet.
What, Tony?
Now we've got ourselves a party. Jill Biden, a couple of drinks.
Can you imagine? I mean, I seriously, the four of us, Jill Biden, a couple bottles of wine, I think that could actually be a very interesting few hours. All right.
I thought her brilliant red suit on election day said it all.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that she has been sending cues for like weeks on end about like, I got you. You guys read my.
Joe put on the MAGA hat.
But yeah, maybe we should give her a MAGA hat. All right, here's the thing. I was gonna initially, I went down a couple different winner rabbit holes. You guys took the Trump one, and I agree. I think it's Team Trump writ large. Then Virginia mentioned Pete. I think the winner is Trump nominees. Because I think it was Kash got a huge break when the FBI Director Christopher Wray said, I'm not going to do this. Pete had a great week, right? He got back on, the momentum's behind him. Trump's going to the Army-Navy game this weekend. I think he's going to hear a lot of folks talk very positively about Pete. The other nominees up there on the Hill, all getting favorable responses. A lot of key senators, Tom Cotton coming out and saying, I'm going to support all of them and setting the thing. So I think I agree with everybody else. I think Team Trump had a great nominee. Pete specifically had a great week. But I also think the nominees in general, because I pointed this out the other day, not a single Democrat in the Senate voted against a single Biden nominee. I don't know why we have a 53-seat Senate majority and we're pretending that somehow, why are our guys not giving the president what he wants? But I'll tell you who my loser is. Big food. You look at what's been going on this week, right? You saw Sarah Huckabee Sanders come out yesterday, talk about banning certain foods in Arkansas to be able to purchase with food stamps. You saw Frank Pallone. Nan knows Frank. He is the ranking Democrat on the House Commerce Committee, a member from New Jersey. Suddenly, last Friday, he sends a letter to the FDA about banning red dye 3. Like, so, gosh, where did that idea come from? And more, you're hearing California talk about banning some of these processed foods and these dyes. This is a huge win for the MAHA movement, for the Make America Healthy Again movement, that suddenly this wellness, this ideas of questioning what the FDA, the CDC, the NIH are allowing in our foods, in our medicine, in our healthcare is being questioned. And the thing to me was, I think more and more, whether it's the Pentagon or these health organizations, I love the idea that we're finally able to question, hey, look, the Pentagon hasn't passed a budget or an audit in 8 years. Don't you think that's kind of silly? The NIH and the CDC have these conflicts. Don't you think that's kind of wrong? I mean, like, there's some, like, we have allowed bad things to just manifest itself. We have $36 trillion in debt. Don't you think that's a little stupid? Like, and finally starting to bring people into government that are going to question the status quo, I think is a good thing. Thank you guys for being here. We got a big weekend coming with the Army-Navy game. Trump's going to be there. I'm going to go join him. It's going to be fun. Thank you guys for wrapping this great day up. A reminder to everybody, we got a big show headed your way tomorrow. Exclusive polling from Signal, right? We brought them on throughout the election. They went back in. They're doing an after action on the state of the country post-election. We were able to ask some key questions in there, including, check this out, who was the most effective surrogate for either side? We asked the question. They're going to give us exclusive results tomorrow ahead of the Monday release. You'll hear it here first, so tune in. Plus, on my newsletter on Substack, SeanSpicer.com, I've got a link if you're interested in getting inauguration tickets, how you can do that. I'm also going to give you some behind-the-scenes photos of the last Army-Navy games that I've gone to with President Trump. Check that all out, SeanSpicer.com. It comes out tomorrow midday. With that, we'll see you back here tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Brent Buchanan is going to join us. Bill O'Reilly is going to join us. It's going to be a great show. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.